12 Faces Sober Speaks podcast, episode 45, part 2. Me and Kezia were talking about a couple things, but before I go back into the interview itself, I wanted to touch on something that you had mentioned. You mentioned that holding down a job, that seems to be something that is very common amongst us individuals from our past, because I know that there was a point in my life that I used to be a substitute teacher when I first graduated from college back in 2003. So from '04 to, I would say, 2007, I substitute taught in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and Phoenix, Arizona. When I got to Phoenix, I was working for 2 different school districts. The Tolleson, I shouldn't even say the school district, but 2 different school districts. And I ended up, instead of taking those teaching assignments like I was like in Minneapolis, I would take an assignment, and depending on how I felt when I woke up that morning, if I wanted to drink more, then I would cancel the assignment. So I found myself a lot of ways turning down money to drink, you know what I'm saying? Instead of, trying to get the money and not, and kind of like so it's definitely interesting. And that's, to me, is like what is key with my guests, is trying to connect like some of the dumb things, not saying you're dumb, just the poor decisions that we made.
Yeah.
So it kind of, like I said, that's why I was writing down a lot of stuff, because I got to bring up these points.
Yeah.
And I know that before I had joined the Army in 2009, I would say I sunk into that depression in terms of like I wasn't happy with the pay that I was receiving, because I had a bachelor's degree. I'm thinking like, okay, I was told growing up, you wouldn't be able to get a college degree, and then I have one, and now I'm basically back struggling. Jobs are offering $7, $8, $9, $10 an hour, and this is, like I said, in the early 2000s. So for me, it was like, okay, I'd have busted my behind, got this high balance as far as student loans, and now you guys want to offer me a fraction of what I know I deserve.
Right.
So that one stood out a lot. Also, I wanted to ask you, like you mentioned that you've lived in various countries, Canada, you said in England, right? That was England, you said? And then did you drink here in the United States? I don't know if you had mentioned that part, or were you transitioned in the transition of moving here?
Yeah, I was in the transition of moving here. So I had only ever drank in the States when I would come to Vegas with my girlfriends, for example, which actually turned out to be where I got married last year. So I've done Vegas as a drinker twice, and then now sober twice, because we were there in February of this year for our anniversary and my husband's birthday. And so it's, the other times I went was like over 10 years ago, but I think about that now and I'm like, I've been sober the whole time I've lived here, but to kind of replay or like make memories in a place where, especially a place like Vegas, where it's a party town, right? But it's been interesting to kind of compare those two. So yeah.
And then I guess my question is that, since you have been able to experience drinking in other countries, like looking back on it now, like how is the culture amongst those different places? Did you see similarities? Or I know you were mentioning that, you witnessed a lot of binge drinking over in England. So is there a difference compared to Canada and comparing to the United States? Is there any difference that stood out to you?
Yeah. So in Canada, I grew up in Alberta, and it's a prairie kind of place, and there's a lot of cowboys, a lot of rural areas and farming and stuff like that. So for example, teenagers where I grew up, the things that you would go do, you'd go for bush cruises and you'd be drinking, or you'd go, like, some people would go like cow tipping, or like, you know, that kind of stuff. As you get older, you would go to country bars, there'd be line dancing. There was that sort of culture. People would have, like, they called them road pops. So there'd be a lot of drinking and driving under different names. No matter what country you're in, it would happen, I think. But in the media, I would say their big alcohol is aggressive no matter what country you're in. I think it just depends, you know, because now they get to kids younger and younger. I don't remember advertising geared towards me or subliminal messages when I was like, you know, 13 and 14. I feel like my daughter's 7. I feel like obviously she knows about alcohol to the extent of what I've told her about, and also being around grandparents that drink and things like that. But I think about her at 14, what she's going to know. That's 7 whole years from now. And you know, with the height of like Snapchat and stuff like that, it's just scary how much our kids are exposed to. So that culture is pretty much the same anywhere. It's just where it happens, if that makes sense. So it might be on a back road in the country versus in a pub. I think there's still, you're still exposed to it. Yeah.
All right. And then the quotes that stood out to me that I wanted to touch on and say a few things, and then I want, you know, your take on them. The first one is, eventually you'll see that it's not the feelings you should be escaping, it's the people. And that stood out to me because, you know, it is more or less the environment. So if you're in an environment of people that's all they're doing, that's their lifestyle, 9 times out of 10 you're not going to be able to flourish in sobriety.
Yeah.
And I learned that the hard way. It's nothing against my brother. You know, when I was in Phoenix and was at the tail end of my drinking, you know, he was 15 minutes away. I could just hop in the car if I'm having problems at home with my ex-wife. I could be like, man, she's tripping, you know, be intoxicated driving when I had no business. And
Yeah.
he'll drink, and or I'll, you know, pass out for a little bit, wake up, go get something to drink, spend a night there, go back to the house. And, you know, and of course, getting away from her, because once I got away from her, it was more or less like, it's just me. And I need to, you know, I found out I had health issues and was like, or I found out I had more health issues and knew that, okay, if I don't give this alcohol up, I'm not going to be here on this earth too much longer.
All right.
So when I got around people like, you know, my mom, she doesn't drink, and, you know, was a big supporter, and it was just a change of environment. I didn't, you know, I lived in Minnesota off and on since 2000. And, you know, I always said, okay, I'm going to move away and not come back. But then I find myself moving away and always coming back. And so the last time I had moved back, it was like, okay, I have to take this sobriety a lot more serious. And so being around the right group of people is definitely important. And so that one stood out to me. So I guess my question to you is that, you know, what was your take on it as you wrote it and you posted it on Instagram?
Along the lines of what you were saying, I think it's a fine line between shifting the blame to others as to why we're drinking and saying, oh, it's only because of these people. If I wasn't hanging around with them, I wouldn't be drinking. However, there's that kind of like famous saying, I don't know if you heard about, like, that you're a product of the 5 closest people you surround yourself with. So you're going to be behaving in ways that are in alignment with those people. So Like when I was drinking the way I wanted to, I think is what AA calls it, drinking how you wanted to, I would surround myself with people who are also drinking in a way like that, in an alcoholic type way. So in my mind, people need to realize that they're drinking to fill a void or to cover something up that they're feeling. They don't want to feel a certain type of way, so they're trying to escape that. Those are still going to be there when you get sober, and that's like the work of sobriety, is to then put in the work to figure out what those feelings are, and what that's related to, whether it's trauma, whether it's something that you've gone through, or just your you know, mental and physical biological makeup as to why you're like that, right? But I think people just think that they're going to put the alcohol down and life will just go on, and they'll magically be better. And I think it's a different time for everyone when you start doing the work that you need to do, but at some point you have to, because you're not going to turn your life into a life of purpose if you don't do that. And for me, my life now resides in the present, but I also never forget where I came from, because that is the stuff that brought me to the point of almost losing everything, right? So I think that's what was going through my head when I wrote that.
Okay, perfect, good answer. And the second one, a sober life starts with simply deciding not to drink in this moment, and not that one, and not the next. You know, that was my problem. It was, you know, I couldn't, you know, I could never just have one drink. I could never just drink, you know, I drank the tall cans, you know, 24-ounce beer cans. And I had to always have 2 or 3. I couldn't go to the store and buy one, because I knew, okay, three will get me feeling good for a little bit, but then even that 3 wasn't enough, and I had to get more. And so that to me, it stood out a lot, because I think that is something that as alcoholics or recovering alcoholics, or even when we were in it, you know, like I said, we couldn't just go to as you refer to, pub. You know, we couldn't just go to establishments and be like, okay, we're going to order one drink. It tended to, you know, escalate and get higher and higher. And then it would depend on if you were driving, how much you were really going to drink. And even if you were driving, it didn't really matter. So though that quote also stood out to me. So what were you thinking in terms of when you posted that one?
I think that was geared a lot towards people in their early sobriety, because you, just like the work that I just talked about and we just talked about, you don't start that day one when you put the bottle down. You really have to, either, whether you end up going to detox or rehab, or if you're doing it on your own, the first step is to like say no to alcohol now. Are you drinking alcohol now? Okay, no, I'm not drinking it now. How about now? No, I'm not drinking it now. And it has to be a conscious decision. And that will often mean, like you said, removing yourself from the people. Like maybe you don't call your brother up, or you just say, I can't talk to you, or it manifests differently for different people, but you have to think to yourself, take it moment by moment. Don't think about, oh my gosh, I've got all my friends are going to this party this weekend and I can't drink then, so it's pointless now. Like, and then you get in that cycle of just being depressed about it. Just think like, right now I'm not drinking, that's pretty cool. And now I'm not drinking either, you know, and that those little wins are what builds your confidence in yourself that you don't have when you're drinking. So you learn to trust yourself again by making those tiny little decisions that help your sobriety.
Okay, and Kezia, I usually close my show off with this, but I was, like I said, taking notes. So I want to throw those some of those key words that you used, but usually I have it where, you know, like a positive message that you may you know, you want to leave someone who might be early in sobriety, or someone that's out there still struggling. But I wanted to customize it just based off of some of the things that you mentioned. If you can leave them with a message with someone that potentially is still out there binge drinking, someone who may be suffering from anxiety, someone who may have been or diagnosed with ADHD, like what would be like a message that you can give them if they are struggling with alcohol or even in a domestic violence situation? Not saying that you were, but I know we talked about it. But just like what would be a message that you give just based off of your own personal past experiences?
That's really good. I think I would tell them um, that there's nothing inherently wrong with you because you might be suffering from whatever it is that you're suffering from. That wasn't something that you did wrong in your life that brought you to this point where you're using alcohol as a coping mechanism. What you are doing is a very natural response. You're trying to soothe yourself and you're trying to comfort yourself from pain that you're feeling. So I want people to know that it's possible to turn that pain into the greatest driver for the purpose in your life. It can become that passion for you because it's a form of energy. So you can take that and turn that around. And I think I'm an example of doing that because I'm able to be successful now because I don't drink. But to know that you're never that one person that has that, and that you can look to others. There's a lot of shining examples now in our community. And I love getting messages from people, you reach out to one person on the internet and tell them your secret. Honestly, it sometimes helps you feel better in that moment, or you make that decision, the craving passes in 20 minutes. So I would just say there's nothing inherently wrong with you. You didn't do anything that brought this upon you,
Perfect. Thank
Yeah.
you. Kezia, I wanted to say it's been definitely an honor and a pleasure for you coming on 12 Faces of Sober Speaks podcast, sharing your story, sharing some vital information in terms of, the culture in other countries as far as drinking, because like I said, a lot of my viewers are here in the United States. And so we only know of just one culture, but you were able to share two other countries and how they function. But there's not too well, there are some differences, but there's also a lot of similarities as well. So thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for blessing the show with some positive information. Thank you for trusting me enough to come on and just be honest, because like that's what I want my guests to be, is to be honest and don't hold nothing back. And where can they follow you? So we can make sure that you get a few more followers to your list, and get some encouraging posts that you have. Where can they follow you at?
Yes, thank you so much for that. Thank you for having me today. This has been an honor as well. They can follow me on Instagram at the Sober Elephant Chronicles.
Okay.
Or I have a website, so it's www.ketsiacalvertcreative.com.
Okay.
That's it.
And I will definitely leave that in the description as well, so that others can check out your site and follow you on Instagram. Because ladies and gentlemen, she does have great content, very positive. And like I said, that's what I'm all about, is having, some really, really good moving parts in the sober community, sharing their stories, and, in hopes to really motivate people and know that we can function in today's society without having to consume alcohol. So once again, thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in to 12 Faces Sober Speaks podcast. You can reach me at 12facessober@gmail.com, as well as 12facessober.com. You can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all under 12 Faces of Sober. I know I need to get back on there on TikTok and make videos, but I'm not the dancing type of person and all that stuff. So I just haven't gotten on there. But most definitely, thank you, Kezia, again for coming on. Greatly appreciated. You enjoy the rest of your day and as well the rest of your week. And I'll be reaching out to you in just a second, so just hang tight. But this concludes another episode of 12 Faces Sober Speaks podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in.